Good morning, everybody. Sorry for the late message. Can you guys hear me? Bobby G,
Yep, I'm here.
how you doing?
Okay.
So today was inspired by another lender I was following online who talks about the structure and the fact that if you don't have structure, and I know this probably applies to most of us here, is if you don't have structure, eventually you're going to miss opportunities. All right. And what he was saying was, when you're trying to scale, and if you don't have the infrastructure and the systems, like as a lender, he's getting calls, hey, when's the appraisal coming in? Hey, did that clear out underwriting? And you're getting all these reactive calls. And his one thing was, I need to eliminate the reactivity of the business so I can focus on the proactivity, right? And I thought about layering over that the fact that reaction takes away from the transaction, and the transaction shouldn't only be an ends to a means or a means to an end of getting the commission check, but it should be a opportunity for us to strengthen that relationship through all the different milestones in the process. I'll repeat that again, like the transaction shouldn't be, all right, these are all the steps I need to do to get to the finish line to get the paycheck, which is what I think most of us think about the process, right? I need to get the appraisal done. I need to go through the home inspection. I need to do this. I need to do that. It really should be about, how do I strengthen the relationship, build more referral worthy activities during that process. Does that resonate with anybody? Is it just like noise? Because it really is kind of a really different perspective on getting the job done.
Sometimes, Rob, you get wrapped up in transactions that suck the energy out of you because you're doing such low priority work to keep the deal together. But it does, like you're saying, the reaction to the transaction, it does affect you on other deals.
Right. So there's two things that are in my one thing here, which kind of are interrelated. One of them is, a lot of the problems are predictive, right? Like we know what's going to come, right? We're just waiting for it. So the strategy is to play offense instead of defense whenever possible, right? To set up the expectations, to set up the processes, to resolve those so that, number one, you're not with 9 things in the back of your head that you need to do on a Monday morning. And I'm sure when you got on this call on Monday, you have either a written list or you have a list in the back of your head of things that you need to address, like playing whack-a-mole. You need to whack these 9 things down or whatever they are. If you can eliminate those things by being more proactive or eliminate those calls from coming in, some of us are getting calls while we're on this meeting, and it's distractive and it's reactive activities that we're doing. If we can play a more systematized, proactive role, we can eliminate the majority of those, the incoming fire, so to speak. And if we do that, we can focus on, the milestone activities in the transaction. How do we build brand value, right, to get more referral business? Because in reality, if we deliver a better experience, I think that the consumer either will be more apt to refer us business, or if we have a process where we ask them during the process, and if they have a better outcome, and that outcome can be tainted by anything that could happen at the end of a deal that has nothing to do with us, right? The most glaring ones are when, the attorney, the lender, and the title company aren't on the same page, and I'm calling Patrick and saying, hey, Patrick, I'll have your numbers for your closing at 3 today by 11. You got to scramble to the bank and get a wire out. Like in 2025, like, should that really be happening? Right. But I mean, by the way you're shaking your head, Patrick, I'm guessing that still happens, right? Occasionally or more than occasionally. And it could be, your title company is great, your lender's great, but one of the attorneys not communicating, or, somebody's out. Like, there's always a reason, but it still taints the transaction. anyway, so if you were gonna change one thing and implement it in the next 30 days, what would that be? Maybe, is iPhone 9, is that Ron?
Yeah, that's me.
Hey, Ron. Sophia, what would one thing that you can change be if you could change something structurally?
Sorry, trying to move because the dog is barking in the background. What would I change structurally? You mentioned something at the beginning, and I keep seeing it on, on Facebook and everything. We really do have to keep going back to our, our past clients and staying in touch, because it's really what's working now.
Well, you have to find another way to call it. It's okay with the dog, it doesn't bother me. But you have to stop using past clients, because that's just
Why?
that's a bad description.
Well, they're right. I'm not clients that we've
No.
done actions with. Yes. Okay. That we're
And I know you don't mean it that way, but like the industry calls it past clients, right? And that's one of those things that just annoys me. And another thing that I think we should use in our communication, or the vocabulary we use, is we should eliminate the term listing agent, and we should replace it with seller's agent, because when buyers look to circumvent their own representation, if they're going to the listing agent, it doesn't sound too bad. But if you're going to the buyer's agent, right, it identifies whose interest they have, right? Does that make sense?
yes. Sorry.
Yes.
So anyway, I would like to, I'd like to eliminate listing presentation, because that's a misnomer. Okay, I'd like to eliminate listing agent and call it the seller's agent, and past clients, unless they've passed away, or you refuse to work with them, we should avoid that description of them. And it's just a psychological piece, even though I know you don't I know you call them your clients, but you just mean that clients I've done a transaction in the past with. We just call them past clients, which is bad. So thank you for sharing. Patrick,
Yeah, it's
what
hard
about
to
you?
get out of that. It's hard to get out of that, listing agent, selling agent. We've been using listing agent for so long, but yeah, you're right, selling or the seller's agent.
Right, and Ron, that's another great point, right? Because seller's agent, to somebody who's not in the business, that doesn't even make any sense. You both sold it, right?
Right.
You mean the buyers, when you say the buyer's agent, or were you referring to the selling, like, it's all confusing by itself. But if we call it the buyer's agent and the seller's agent, it's like the plaintiff and the defendant's attorney, right? It identifies
Right.
two sides that are at odds with each other. And it could
Exactly.
be an equitable transaction, right? Like, I'm sure there's some, okay, so I'm doing an acquisition, right? I'm buying an office right now. I'm in the process. There are two attorneys working together. I think that's a very different process than if I'm dealing with an E&O claim, where there are two attorneys that are, one's suing and one's defending, right? Here we have two parties that want to complete a transaction, right? Buy and sell an office, and we're working together to consummate the deal. Even though it's a friendly transaction, I am never going to call the seller's attorney and say, hey, can you make this change, or what's your advice on this, right? I'm always going to my attorney to get that information.
Right.
So from a mindset perspective, I think clarity is power. And I think, forget who said this, but it's like identify, show the complexities and identify the simplicity of a transaction, right? Like, show the complexities, provide the solution, because transactions are complex. They don't need to know how the sausage is made, but if they don't see the value, the quintessential piece there is agents that get so excited, Patrick, they mail out something saying, hey, I sold this property in 2 days, right? Then just that one piece of that one marketing piece will let me believe, well, wow, if you sold it in 2 days for over ask, maybe I'll just sell it myself. It looks like it's really easy. Right? So, anyway, I'm getting off the reservation here of the fact that I think we need to, focus on the experience, right? Like how do we build brand value instead of just close transactions? How do we use all the challenges to deliver a seamless process to the clients? They
Well,
don't want
Rob,
to know. They don't
I
want to know
think
all the problems. Go
I
ahead.
was going to say, Rob, I think you bring up a couple good points. And at least for me, one of the things that I certainly would change would be setting expectations or getting better at setting expectations from the jump, especially in today's market from both the seller side and from the buyer side. From the seller side, pricing the home, this might just be our starting point, and our expectation is to get above our listing price, here in New Jersey still. And then same for the buyers, right? Setting expectations that the likelihood is that they will not get the first offer that they make. They may have to make 5, 6, 10 offers in order to be in the game. They might have to get hurt a little bit before they realize what the houses are trading for. And then on top of that, I would say from a value standpoint, from the agent standpoint, is let's not forget about one, setting expectations and why they're working with you. They're going to be working with you for your expertise and for your relationships. And I think the relationship part of it is very important because I was with clients over the weekend. And, the listing agent or the selling agent of the house, I had a good relationship with, and my clients saw that. They felt a lot more comfortable after leaving that open house because of the 10-minute conversation that you had with the agent in front of them. So those are some of the things that I think we can continue doing and always get better at.
Yep. Patrick, running a team, perhaps there's a way that your staff, whether it's virtual or virtual US based, could have these milestone points, because even things like, if a client sends you a referral, like, do you have a process that Chopper, where are you, man? We're all jealous.
He's in the Vatican City, guys.
We are jealous, man, and you are committed. Thank you for joining. What I'm saying is, if we have a process to systematize things, and then we'll deliver a more consistent experience, right? And maybe even sending out a handwritten or giving out a handwritten piece of paper, at the beginning of a transaction, saying, hey, here's the milestones. Check the boxes as we get there, right? So that they know exactly what to expect, because the industry doesn't do a good job at being transparent with the public on how everything's gonna, come together, right? It's like this box of surprises for consumers, right? Oh, you didn't tell me this. So now the quintessential is, Patrick calls me up as a seller and says, great news, we got a contract on your property, or I'm the buyer, right? And then what does the attorney automatically do during attorney review? Sends in a letter saying
Void the contract.
they void the contract, right? If you're a buyer and you don't know that that's going to happen, do you think you might be stressed out overnight, right? I mean, it's the most bizarre situation, like the process I've ever seen. But if you don't know what to expect, you'll be like, oh, Sigrid, we just lost the house. I got this termination letter, right? So, like, that's what I'm talking about with regard to expectations. So, Jessica, how about you? Like, what's one thing that you want to change the next 30 days? If you're able to talk. Sorry about it. Maybe you might not be able to talk, but Bobby G, how about you?
Well, I've been changing, Rob, baby steps, but I'm being a little bit more consistent. I'm trying to block out times, just being on the masterminds, and I'm listening a lot to Daryl Davis. So I am improving, and I hope to continue to improve, but it's all, I'm an old timer, so it's tough to change my habits, but I am changing them slow but sure.
So I want to ask you this question, Bobby, because you intrigue me with your business model in a good way. If you had 48 hours in a day, would you do a lot more business?
I want to give you an honest answer. I don't know if I'd get that much more business. I'd maybe get some, but I can't tell you it would be a big impact.
I want you to go deep with that one there because I think it's different. Because I know you're always busy because you have built relationships and connections. But if you had more time, I think if you had twice the amount of time, that you would find your level and you would do double the business. And if you hadn't, if you had a system set up, you probably would do more than double the business. And if you think that way, then you look at your hours as being a little bit more precious, right? The things that you do administratively, because you don't know who else you could be helping, right? I mean, if you had no connections and you started out today, I believe you'd find yourself being successful in 6 months in a new market.
And part of that is the approach that I'm trying to change my habits, because I do have a decent business of referrals and sphere of influence. And truthfully, that's what made my phone ring. Well, we all know that the market has changed and those phone calls aren't coming in. So now I have to go get the business a little bit more than the business came to me.
Right. And that goes to my, I don't know if anybody else has coined this. I might be able to own this statement, but good markets create bad habits. Bad markets require good habits.
And I am a victim of that 100%.
So, in terms of mindset, Bobby, if I moved you to Woodbridge, California, and it was the same demographics that you have there and you knew nobody, I think you'd get to your level in 6 months or less because of the experience and, the DNA of who you are. And if that is true, and if you buy into that, then when you're doing activities that could be, outsourced, or if you're like most of us where your systems aren't solid, that sometimes you miss something, or sometimes you're, oh my God, I forgot to do this, and you get it done, but it probably is not consistent with the experience that you're looking to deliver. That's an opportunity, right?
Yeah.
So, when I was in the lending business, that was like my last real sales job. And, everybody else was worried about, oh my God, the refinances are going away, this and that and the other thing. Every single year I grew my business because I was 1 year smarter in the business, 1 year more experienced. Maybe I didn't build 1% a month or 1% a day, but I certainly built, 10% a year in experience and efficiency that allowed me to overcome any type of market forces that came in, right? Because in real estate, a lot of people have exited the business, right? So those people are gone. So the transactions available per person, or even the transactions available per productive full-time person, are probably similar to where they were before. It's just a different way to get them, right? Because the market's moved. People have different perceptions. People increasingly think that, Zillow is the same as an agent, and that's our problem, not any external problem. I'll bet you most of us have at least 1,000 people in our database, right? And what percentage of people in any given year, even absent a specialized database, are contemplating a real estate transaction? And this might go up or down 5 percentage points or not, but 1 out of 20 is going to be doing a transaction in the next 6 months randomly, right? So if you're like calling the people that 1 out of 20 of them are going to be doing a transaction. Maybe they're looking to buy a second home in South Carolina, And Patrick might go, oh, that doesn't help me. Well, yeah, you make a referral, right? And then that referral gives you referral business back. And there used to be a commercial where I think it was for shampoo. Like, I know two friends, they knew two friends who knew two friends. Anybody ever remember that commercial from like the 70s or the 80s? Anybody old enough to remember that one?
Farrah Fawcett was in that commercial.
Okay, so Bobby, yeah. So think about that. Like people in your database, and if we're only looking at if they have a transaction to do, we're missing out, right? Because every client knows two people who knows two people who knows two people, right?
Yep.
And if they can talk about the experience that they got from Bobby and how you're top of mind, it's not like they're doing a sale because you're sending them a gift card. They're doing that sale because they want to talk about you, right? And that's where having a better management of your database really comes in and helps. And I don't know, Glenn, are you still seeing on Fellow how many deals you lose?
Unfortunately, yes.
And like, are you losing more than you get?
Oh yeah.
Wow. And who on this call thinks Glenn's pretty set up with systems? I put my two hands up, right? And if you're losing more than you get, is that bad or good, Glenn?
Oh, it's horrific. I hate looking at that dashboard.
But by looking at it, doesn't it let you see a bigger possibility?
It does. And it lets you look at it at a different angle too, right? Because if you just look at it like the ones you lost, you go, what was the reason we lost it? And it's not always just, I didn't communicate, because some of them we do communicate. You have to really analyze it.
And Glenn, there's probably at least half of those that are in your sphere that were, even if you knew about it, they were unattainable because the niece got a license, they got a real estate there's going to be reasons for it, right?
Yeah.
And it might have even been, I assume that it picks up non-MLS sales, right? Where maybe, you sold it to your nephew or you took a spouse off, right? There might be that possibility of corrupting the data. But even so, you still have a tremendous opportunity. You can be angry about it, or you can look at it and say, wow, my total available market is just a lot bigger than I thought it was, right? My TAM.
Yep, it certainly is.
And that doesn't even take into consideration the brother or the daughter of that person who did a transaction that should have been coming to us.
Yep, so true.
So,
Hey, Rob, I jump in on this.
Yep.
So I'm not at the level of Chief Baker, that's for sure, but I keep a page of pain. And when a listing comes up that I think I should have gotten, I write down the ML number, and either every quarter or at the end of the year, I keep track of the deals I lost. And then I estimate what the commission could be. And then then I go into the field position for about 2 or 3 days. But a lot of times it motivates me to get back out there. But same thing, I always say to myself, I lost this business because of me, nobody else. I don't blame anybody else. I could have done a better job here or there, but I do keep track of that stuff.
Well, I hope you don't share that with Jill. Just kidding.
No, I do. Makes it more painful.
and Rob, like the opportunity that Fellow presents is great, right? But it's only when people step up, the predictability of someone that wasn't telling anyone they wanted to do it, right, or didn't ask is hard. But one thing that we've really narrowed down and focused on the last few weeks is opposite sides of the sale. So people who bought a listing from us, and we're just going back to them and basically with I have a buyer conversations for those homes, and then saying at the end, hey, I know you're not selling right now, but if I can just put you on an awesome platform that we give complimentary that tells you the equity you have in your home ongoing, is that okay? And then we get them on the Fellow that way. But we have 400 past sales that we did take advantage of. So now we're all over those. And that's a post process now for us. We were giving it away.
Right. Now, I had mixed feelings about that in the past, Glenn, because I'm like, oh my God, that's like borderline unethical. But I'm like, you know what? If their agent chooses to abandon them, right, you're stepping up.
Yep.
And they did buy your listing, right? And if their agent's doing their job, you have no chance, right?
Yeah, and it's not like we're doing it the day after or putting a gift on the countertop or anything like that. It's going to be 3 months post every time.
Right. I mean, it reminds me back to Julie Vanderblue's idea. Doesn't she leave a box?
Yes, that one's bold though. That's really bold. That's not my style, but yeah, that's bold.
Well, you know, it was a box of value, right? Some local vendors that will, that she stood behind in the community. Like, I don't know. I think that, hey, enjoy the community, right? We're not going to be calling you, but if you call me because your agent abandoned you, that's a different story, right? It's almost like, do we want to do we want to be perceived as the plaintiff's attorney where you never want to work with that person? I don't think so. I think you want to be a local expert, right? That's available. That's it. And I think there is a line. I wouldn't be calling the other person's client, but I would be comfortable leaving something of value, like a gift certificate that to my favorite local restaurant, and let the other agent call me and say, hey, why don't you adopt the idea? Recruit them to your team.
Yep.
You
That's
know
been
what,
super successful.
Rob and Glenn, I just thought about this as you guys are talking about this, and I think Glenn would agree that it would be a disservice to the client not to have Glenn reach out to them, because Glenn believes, just like we all believe, that we are truly the experts. So I would be doing you, buyer, a disservice by not giving you the opportunity for us to work together because of how much business I've done.
Yeah. And Rob, we are spending a bunch of time, with ChatGPT and stuff like that, trying to figure out how do you interact with a client and also give the information back to the market without it being the classic realtor, just sold, just listed, and things like that. And we started the process. We added it to our CSU checklist that when we go under contract now, a package gets sent with branded boxes to the person saying, congrats, get packing. But on it, we have a sticker that we put, and it says, take a selfie with our box, send it to us, and get a prize, right? Which is lottery tickets, right? But what it's going to do is the client's telling the story of their move and how we gave them boxes that we can then put on social media. So we can tell a story of the client opposed to just, oh, well, under contract. Because no one cares about people that are cheering you on or realtors. I want new clients to come from it. So that box thing we parlayed into a whole nother marketing effort, and we spend like $70 per client on it. It's peanuts. And they're branded. They have our logo and everything on it. So when they take a picture in front of the box.
So, I was thinking of scaling back my Zillow spend because the cost of leads are ferociously expensive, like $300 to $700 for like a tour request, and some of them are completely bogus and is really mind-numbing and kind of makes me nauseous. And I actually ran the numbers on it, and we're almost at break even on it. And we get some title business and some other stuff. So I was like, damn, like this isn't in my best interest to cut it. I mean, it's tough to scale beyond that because some people don't convert it. But what it put in my mind is the cost of a valuable lead and what that is. So if you convert, 10% of your leads and you're paying $300 for a lead in a particular area, that's a $3,000 referral fee, right? If you're spending money on Zillow. So when you look at Glenn's idea of spending $70 on somebody who knows you and can give you a referral, like, I think that the industry is completely, handicapped in how to handle that, right? So, I'd rather give a gift to somebody than put the money in Zillow's pocket, who would really prefer to see me dead in reality, right? They'd like to automate me out of the process, which I don't think is possible. But, having different ways of sharing and appreciating consumers instead of spending that money on pure out marketing, there's a lot to that. So keep those ideas coming if you have anything that's worthwhile like that, because I think it requires some creative energy and then some implementation process, because if you know, if you say you're gonna do it, Glenn, you gotta do it, otherwise you've got 10x of damage, right?
Yeah,
If that
Yep.
sits on somebody's desk and they don't get their lottery ticket, then your name is mud across the entire community. And I want to just end this meeting. We're a minute over with, you know, yesterday Glenn and I spent the day with one of his team members who is not very well, and just got to say a prayer for John Cosgrove, who is, you know, fighting the battle of his life, and I think he's now in hospice care at the hospital. So, Glenn, we're all praying for him, brother.
thank you.
All
a
right.
good guy.
Any subject, any ideas for next week? Send me a text. But yeah, I thought for a small group, this was an amazing meeting. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you,
Prayers
Rob.
for
Thanks.
John.
Bye, guys.
Thanks,
Bye, guys.
Rob. All right, Rob. Thank you.